Apart from the crushing sexual orientation deficit I felt compared with their supposedly normal lives, I became convinced that I would never be as soul connected to another human being as they were with each other. And that feeling of never being able to live as well and feel as fulfilled as those who had created me became one of the heaviest weights on my soul and on my self-confidence right through my adolescence. I never tried to rationalize that gap in my own expectations, and I certainly never talked to them about what it took to build their bond. I just marveled and studied them in silence. But as my hidden envy blossomed, so did my childish and neuroatypical attempt to invent my own circles of emotional intimacy. I would look at every new friendship as an opportunity for that type of magical mental connection with someone, and the excitement would drive me to dive into every new connection with unfiltered and often extreme intensity. I would overtrust and overinvest without even checking for a hint of reciprocation. I would do the same with older relatives, aunts, uncles, even faraway family friends whom I drew into becoming my pen pals. And I would write and phone and meet and talk endlessly, always hoping to find a way to feel as tightly connected to another soul as my parents obviously felt with each other. My teenage years were defined by this frenzied search for love and connections everywhere. At a time when the spectrum of autism was so much less understood, nobody attached any label to all these exceptional behaviors. I was simply considered a bizarrely hypersocial kid. My early move away from home opened up a range of possibilities, but didn't change my style or momentum. I was still anxiously looking for love, and still feeling deficient and deprived in that respect, but at least now I was a young adult, living unsupervised, and feeling a lot more normal, because everyone around me also appeared to be hunting for the same thing. I enjoyed my enormous capacity to open up and invest emotions in new people all the time. I thrived on it, in fact. I loved the constant adventure, the thrill of discoveries and new forms of love and connection. I plunged and plunged often into the silliest and shallowest of flings and friendships. I learned to substitute quantity for quality and to bury my craving for emotional intimacy way beneath my frenzied, fun lifestyle. In short, I confused excitement with satisfaction. I drove myself so hard and fast and unearthed so many lust opportunities along the way that I managed to convince myself that I was riding the perfect wave. And as I got into my 20s, the nagging sense of envy I felt towards my parents started to fade. The old folks began to look a little more tired, a little less ideal for each other, and a little less inspiring. And from my high spot right on top of that amazing wave, I found I no longer needed to shift my eyes quite as far up to see them. And then my entire world was reinvented by a chance encounter. It was a gorgeous spring day, Mother's Day, the 14th of May, 1989. I was 25 years old and had just completed my second degree and started my first real job. I had spent that morning cleaning up the big mess from a rowdy party I had thrown in my condo the night before for a couple of MBA classmates who were getting married. I was a bit hungover and sleep deprived and probably not looking my best. But once the big cleanup was done, I threw on the cheesiest pair of red shorts and an ugly t-shirt and drove to Toronto's Greektown for lunch with a bunch of friends. We sat on a patio and feasted on sunshine, garlic, and laughs for hours. And then, as I was driving back home and feeling the lure of a hangover-induced cozy nap in the gorgeous spring sun, I took an exit off the highway, parked the car, and walked into Toronto's High Park. I spotted an empty picnic table in the middle of a sunny grassy field. High Park was my favorite cycling destination. It was far enough from home to be a bit of a challenging ride, and its steep hills offered some great speed and cardio thrills. I had always spent a lot of time cycling, particularly after moving to Toronto with all its biking routes and paths along the lake. On that beautiful sunny Sunday, I was frustrated at not being able to ride. My old bike was wrecked, and I hadn't yet figured out where or how to buy a new one. Not only was the thought of the astronomical $100 expense intimidating, but I didn't know how to bring a new bike home after driving to a store in my car. So, showing up at the park in a car made me envious of those there on bikes, although all such thoughts were quickly eclipsed by my powerful sleepiness. As I walked over to the picnic table, I didn't even notice that there was a person sitting at the next one with a bike by his side. It was the only other table, and he was the only other human being in that entire grassy field, but I don't even remember seeing him. I lay down on my picnic table and promptly fell asleep. The whole time I slept, he stayed there. He just watched me, in my geeky clothes, my day after the debauchery, tired and ungroomed face, and my very own little Greek meal garlic cloud hovering above me and keeping the mosquitoes away. And then when I finally woke up,